Hello again, welcome back. So today we're going to be revisiting my external graphics card and the A300. Before I get into all that, I'm going to apologize that this is probably going to be a very long video. I had a lot of troubles with this, spent a lot of time with it, a lot of testing. So I'm going to try to put some timestamps down below, so if you don't want to have to go through all that, you can just kind of skip ahead to either the benchmarks or the next stage in the build. So I told you before that I was wanting to move my external graphics card into an enclosure like this to kind of clean up the setup, and I will say it is a lot cleaner this way. But I had a lot of troubles. So before I start talking about the troubles I had, so I mentioned in my last video that I got the idea from another YouTuber, ETA Prime, and how he did the external graphics card. However, so watching him, if you have not seen his videos yet, you need to go check it out. He's done a lot of small form factor computers, single board computers, handheld gaming consoles. He does a lot of great work. He's very thorough, in depth. You really need to go check him out. So when he does external graphics cards, he makes it look easy. He has the adapter, hooks it up, and then he's got a Molex connector. He hooks up to a power supply, and then power cable is going to the graphics card. He hits the power button on the computer and just powers on. It just works so phenomenal for him. Me, not so much. I had nothing but problems with this setup. Even though going from the ADT link adapter that I had for my last video and then trying to move it in here, just had so many problems with. I even tried getting other parts to see if I can make this job a little bit easier and less clutter, and nothing really worked. This thing kicked my butt. So one of the first problems that I had is I dealt with a lot of crashings, and I spent a lot of time trying to diagnose it. For some reason, when I moved it in here, I just had a lot of problems, especially spending more time trying to do benchmarking. Instead of just doing 2 games, I did a lot more games. I did 1080p, 1440, 4K for y'all, and the problems I didn't have before, I just started seeing them more. So one of the problems I had, so the original graphics card I was using was the Gigabyte WindForce OC gaming card. If I'm correct, this is actually supposed to be a reference PCB. You wouldn't be able to tell that from the power draw. So I had a power usage meter hooked up to the wall, and all it was checking is the graphics card and the power supply, this power supply, and just before crashing it was pulling, sorry, I hit the mic, I didn't mean to do that. It was pulling 450 watts before it shut down. I'm pretty sure this car is not supposed to be pulling that much. So I don't know if I gotta take it apart, clean it, figure out why it's pulling so much, because this card does not pull that much. This is the EVGA XC Ultra that I have in here right now. So one of the problems, the second problem with that is that with that ADT link, you have to use, most of your power is being pulled from the 24-pin motherboard connector and a 4-pin CPU connector. So you don't get to use the 12-volt rail that would normally power the graphics card and the power supply. So, and I think that's one of the problems, is that, so the power supply that's in here is rated at 650 watts. So there shouldn't be any reason why the power supply would have powered off at 450. But I think it's because it's trying to pull all that power from the 4-pin CPU and the 24-pin motherboard connector, and it just couldn't handle it, so it ended up powering off. So I found a different card, was using that. Second problem I had, so in order to mount the ADT link adapter, which I will show you here in a little bit, I had to use the PCIe riser cable card. And I would have, once I figured the power usage part, I was dropping pictures for just like, for some reason, like it would cut out or it would just not register. The graphics card, I looked into Event Logger, and it was showing hard kernel issues with the graphics card. I went through different power supplies, different parts, different connectors, trying to figure out, and I ended up finding out that it was the riser cable. So definitely do not cheap out on your PCI riser cable like I did. So I will put in a link down in the description below with the parts that you really need, and also some of the parts that did work with me. So I would definitely recommend like the Thermaltake PCI riser cable. It's about like $50, so you can be paying for it, but hopefully it should be a lot better than this. So another problem that I had. So Razer advertises that their Razer Core, this is not the Chroma, this is just the Razer Core X, that it supports 3-slot graphics cards. However, it does not support true 3-slot graphics cards, because this side right here was just hitting up against right here. So without modifications, it will not fit an EVGA 3-slot graphics card. So I ended up taking it out, and I ended up using the bracket for the Gigabyte card. So another problem that I had. So while trying to find a different option that took up less space, so I grabbed another X16 M.2 adapter. I mean, this thing takes up a lot less space than what the ADT Link does. So I figured, I'd try to use this, and this is very similar to probably what I've seen on ETA Prime News. So this actually comes with power connector for the PCIe, because you're not going to get power through your data cable. So you need an auxiliary power going to the X16 here. So it comes with a SATA power adapter. However, the power supply in here does not have a SATA power port. It has a 24-pin motherboard, 8-pin CPU, and 2 8-pins for the graphics cards. So this setup will not work with the current power supply. So I tried a different power supply. Still wouldn't turn on like this. So I got a Molex adapter to power up the X16. Still would not power up the power supply, which I don't know how ETA Prime does it. So the only way I can get it to power up is actually I had to jumper the 24-pin connector on the power supply. So I have the EVGA one that has just a little connector that goes on the 24-pin to power it up. And it'd power that way. It's not ideal, and it's a bulky setup for this, because then you're going to have to cram in the 24-pin cables, and it's just there to power on the unit. It's not even hooked up to anything. So taking up already more space than it needs to be. So then all I end up really using is that I got a set of just generic cable extensions, because the power supply, the cables on the power supply are very short, so it needed some extensions. These I didn't need to use, so these are the leftovers. And a PCI riser cable, and I will show you that here in a short. All this mess that's in here. Before I go into all that, I'll show you this clip right here. about how I did some of the modifications to the case. And as you can see from the video, all I pretty much did is I removed the Thunderbolt board, and as you can see right here, here's the 24 pin, here's the 8 pin CPU, and then there'll be 2 more connectors that connects to the graphics card. I drilled holes and slots right here in the back, up here, and then another one down here for this option that I was hoping was going to work but did not. And then I just slapped a coat of paint on it just to kind of cover up the bare metal. I did end up doing some gaming benchmarks. I did a handful of games at 1080p, 1440, and 4K, and I compared it to my desktop. Now, however, it is not apples to apples comparison, so just keep that in mind. So we're going from a 3400G to comparing it to a 9900KS, an 4-core 8-thread versus a 8-core 16-thread locked at 5 gigahertz all-core, both of them using 2080 Ti's. You know, it's not a fair comparison. But I did that just to kind of show you that you're still going to get pretty good performance out of this, even at only a 4x bandwidth compared to 16x bandwidth, especially at 4K. You're not going to be losing that much, and it's still very playable. Now, are you going to be able to play the EA sports games at high frame rates? No. But you can, for my setup and how everybody else has pretty much liked it so far, is having a setup like this, or where I can have it in the camper, able to bring it home, hook it up this, and play some 4K gaming, all with the same computer. With that said, check out some of the benchmarks. So as you can see from the benchmarks, you can still play some pretty good games at higher frame rates with 3400G and this external closure over 4X. Now there are some anomalies in there that I really can't explain for, other than maybe that they prefer the AMD over Intel. Some of them, especially like I think it was Hitman, at 1440p, it did not like 1440p for some reason. I tried it multiple times. I tried different I tried reflashing the operating system on this. So I don't know what was the deal with that. With that said, I'm gonna kind of tear this apart, kind of give you a more in-depth look of all the mess that's in here. I did have a video. I'll show you that real quick. those were the parts that I planned on using for this setup. However, most of that didn't work for this setup very well. I tried a couple times trying to get different options. It just didn't work out. So before I start tearing this down, I did have a couple people ask me about the noise level of this Noctua CPU cooler. I'm just going to test that real quick so you can listen to it. I don't have this thing running. I don't have a fan running or anything like that, so all you should be hearing is this. The GPU fans are spinning, so let's see. Now, fan noise does not bother me at all. So I've got this one locked at full speed in the BIOS, but that even sounds quieter than the fans in the PlayStation 4, in my opinion. But to give you an example, I don't care about noise. So in this one, I have 10 3000 RPM Noctua industrial fans in here. And when I'm gaming, they're usually at full blast. So I don't care about fan noise. I just care about making sure that it's cool. With that said, let's go ahead and move on. I'm going to take it down a little bit. So with my handy dandy iFixit kit, so we'll show you the connector I have right here. Let me go ahead and take these power cables off. Turn this a little bit. So with this adapter, you'll have a screw to disconnect your M.2 cable, and it just slides out like this. So the good thing about it is that it's not like the USB Type-C connector that you can accidentally pull out or something like that while you're gaming. The downside is that if you do accidentally pull on it, you're going to break something. And this is what you're pretty much left over with. I don't know. See what y'all... I'd like to see if y'all have any ideas or something. So what I'd like to do is probably make like a little cover. Maybe that's uses magnets or something to puts this cable right here. And as you can see, I mean that's a pretty nice setup. You can just kind of put your little cable right there. You can take your Wi-Fi antennas off and you can throw that in a backpack or something like that. For the I/O shield, you could probably just notch out a nice little cutout for the cables here. Yeah. Alright, for the mess of it. So here's the M.2 cable. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it since it's black. So made a slot here, and I made a slot here just above the USB Type-C hole for the Thunderbolt, for the other option that didn't work out for me. Alright, let's get this mess out of here. You can see how much trouble I had. Alright, so here's the mess. Alright, so here's your ADT link board right here. You can see the PCIe riser cable that just got folded in. So make sure that if you're going to go this route, make sure that you fold the cables. Trying to get them trained so they can lay just right, because otherwise it's going to be a mess. I have not cable managed this at all, so the cables are just kind of laying in here. With this setup, unfortunately, unless you get a different power supply, I was not able to figure out a way to power up this side fan right here. So I was kind of disappointed about that. I really wanted that working. As you can see right here, the GPU power cables that go straight to the power supply, you are not able to use. If you try hooking them up and you don't go through the ADT link adapter, it will give you an error message on the screen saying the GPUs are not powered up. So you have to use power through the ADT link board in order to power the GPU. And as you can see right here, your 24-pin motherboard connector and a 4-pin CPU connector. If you try using the other 4-pin that comes out of the power supply, it will not work. It will not boot up. So as you can see, all that power is still being drawn through your motherboard connector, which that also means more than likely if you have a For the Win 3 or definitely not a RTX 3000 series card, I don't think this motherboard or this power supply would be able to handle it. Now, would I recommend this setup for anybody? Absolutely not, because this enclosure by itself, from I think I got it from Amazon, the Razer Core X was $300 to go ahead and turn around and pull out the PCB that comes with it and cut up the case. Definitely not gonna recommend it, especially then buy some cables, buy some riser cables. I think a good set of riser cables would be about $50, maybe about $30 on cable extensions, about $100 for the ADT link. It is not feasible at all. In my opinion, it looks good, but there's also other GPU enclosures. You might be able to find one that's used, maybe one that doesn't have a power supply. That would be my recommendation. That way you could put the power supply in it that you want. You'll have better options. Maybe you'll have a SATA and Molex power. Obviously if you have a ITX power supply. Yeah, you can see I'm just kind of got wires just kind of stuffed in here. Like here's the other 4-pin CPU power. The next time that I revisit the external GPU, what I'd like to do is make a parts list of stuff that you can get from retailers like Amazon and be able to make a GPU enclosure that's going to be obviously a lot cheaper, because this is not feasible at all. Would not recommend it at all. But what I'd like to be able to make a list, make something that's user friendly, that everybody can buy the parts, buy the tools, all online, and they can make their own GPU enclosure. If you're interested in a setup like this. With that said, I think that's all I got on this guy. Hopefully you've enjoyed the time I spent with it. Yeah, like I said, it was a pain in the butt for me. Next week, finally got my hands on the 4000 AMD APUs. This is the 8-core, 16-thread 4750G from AMD. This is supposed to be a huge IPC improvement over the 3400. This is not available to consumers. Or excuse me, this is supposed to be slated only for OEM manufacturers. However, there are people that sell them. I will talk about that more in the next video. And there's supposed to be a way you can put that into the Asrock A300. So I'm going to go step by step showing you how to flash the BIOS and install the 4750 into your Asrock A300. Following that, I did get my hands on the Asrock X300, so I will be doing a comparison between the Asrock deskmini A300 and X300. So stay tuned and check that out. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you'd like to help support the channel, please stop by my Patreon account, hit that subscribe button, and I shall see you in the next one. Thank you.